Calong-Russo is VP of Marketing, NAM USA. And then we also have Natalie Diaz, founder and CEO of Twiniversity, who many of you know. So we'll go ahead and get started.
Okay, so we're here to talk about influencer marketing. And Nat, I know that you have some opinions on that, so let's just bring it down to the very basics here first. What is influencer marketing? What's an influencer campaign? Give us the skinny.
Well, I could not possibly have been followed better because that was so explanatory of what's happening. And so a lot of times, so what an influencer is it's such a BS word in plain English because everybody who has an Instagram account now is apparently an influencer. I don't know if you guys knew that. So if you have more than 2 followers, so it's like more than your spouse, you are officially an influencer, right? And so people have, they're making these pitches to you guys and they're like, well, I'm an influencer and I have this and this is what I do. And it's really frustrating to people who are genuinely trying to look out for their audience and they're pitching the same thing to you. And I feel like oftentimes it just gets a little gray. So an influencer is somebody that you hire to represent your brand for whatever it is, whether it's a product or a service, and it's their job to portray the brand that either you would prefer them to, like if you're like a very religious brand, then you might hire somebody who doesn't say BS, right? So that's something you probably want to look for. So that's typically what an influencer is, and what an influencer campaign is that you would work with that influencer and either you would have the terms or the influencer would have the terms on what a partnership would look like in order to portray your brand in that light. It's perfect.
So Ria, from a brand perspective, talk to us about how do you know if an influencer campaign is the right fit and how do you approach that from a brand perspective?
So for our brand, we really take a lot of care in identifying the right influencers for us. We look at, we spend a good amount of time looking through their Instagram, their blog posts, and anybody who is potentially, every post is about, diet green tea or teeth whitening, it gets crossed off the list. Because for us, authenticity is number one. Because we get associated with these people and we take that very seriously. And what we really, and how we're sort of viewing influencers for our brand is, if you take everything offline back in the old days, you have a group of, moms who are, sitting at a church basement and they're just talking about, the babies and the products they love. We want to sort of mimic that. And so a lot of our strategy has gone towards choosing moms who are influential within their mom group. And so we really shy away from sort of the bigger influencers like, who again are just peddling every single product.
So I guess that's a great segue into where do you get started? So Kara, I think that you're probably the best one to start that, and we kind of go down the line. Where do you begin?
Yeah, and I do kind of want to tag on too. I think influencer marketing is certainly really hot right now. It's really important, but it's just one tool in the toolbox too. There's lots of other things to do if you're, launching a new product or you're a new organization. You don't necessarily want to put all your eggs in one basket there. So for getting started, just like you were saying, we do it very manually. So we like to build relationships with influencers, and we found that that's how you get the best content too. You want to have one-on-one relationships with them. You want to make sure that their voice and their content is authentic, that they would authentically use your product. We don't want to force any relationships with people. We want to make sure that they would generally use the product. We want to make sure that, look at the company that they keep. So, if they are working with other brands that we, maybe that we don't think are legit, we would not recommend working with them. So we take a look at their content. There are third-party apps out there that can do that legwork for you, and we've tried those out before. And certainly they might work for some people, but we found that, it's really about building the relationships, and also educating folks about your brand too. So, we don't want any influencer to just repeat our key messages, but we want them to feel comfortable that they understand the product, they kind of know what the brand is about, and then they can use it, talk about it in their own voice to create really quality content.
Our question was, how do we start this?
How do you get started?
Okay, so for us, what I would say is that if you get approached by an influencer, so how we typically work at Twiniversity, and if you guys don't know, we actually put our media kit on the table, and it wasn't for you to see how amazing we are, although we are. It really is to show you that although typically people would paint me into an influencer corner, we're significantly more than an influencer. And, to me, an influencer is like, oh my God, look at this shampoo that I used yesterday, and it's so fantastic. Whereas we're like, the goal of Twiniversity is to help that mom have a better life and have a better experience. So instead of it just being like the Nat show, it's really like, it could be the Nat show, but how is Nat gonna make sure that that person has a more fulfilling experience? And I think that's why I get troubled when people call me an influencer, because this generic term it's too generic, and I am not out for me, I am out for the people that follow me. So every piece of content that we create, it's very specific to the reader, very specific to the reader. And so our readers are twin moms, and our readers, just like Scary Mommy does, we're, not that I think we could ever compare ourselves to them, but we would be almost a Scary Mommy, but just to 3.8% of the population. So we do recognize that, moms are everywhere. And I think why we're so successful at doing it is because I have never portrayed myself as somebody that's perfect. I don't even say I'm perfectly imperfect. I'm so opposite of perfect. Truthfully, if any of you know me, like Alan, the head of my fan club, typically we'll do conferences and I don't have makeup on. Julie's like, are you wearing a bra today? Like, there's things that we do. We're real people. We're real people, and we're really able to convey a message. So if you're gonna start working with people, if you get pitched by somebody like us, we already qualified you. If we don't go to the show and literally like, do you know us, do you know us, do you know us, do you know us? We go to the companies that we actually think would be good for us. If you wanted to find us, then do like Ria said, and you do your homework on people that you think would be a good voice for your brand. And please, I beg you, do not say, dear influencer. When you send an email, oh my goodness. Could this be like, could we have like the 10 commandments of PR? Oh my God, it makes me crazy. But if you say dear Nat, instead of even dear Natalie, I'll read it. I know that sounds crazy, but to start, you have to be really personal and do not cut and paste. We will catch you. We find you. We get, I literally get about over 400 emails a day. And out of those 400, I'm gonna say 20% are brands and PR companies trying to get my attention. The ones that are super generic, I kind of dismiss, because my thing is, let the smaller influencers have that, right? Let the people who, like at one point I drank that Kool-Aid, I don't drink that Kool-Aid anymore. I gotta be a lot more selective, especially because we have a very small portion of branded content. So like Meg was asking, how much do you do? We only do about 1/7 branded content, and the rest is editorial. Because our goal at Twiniversity is not to buy my kids giraffes to go to school. It's humbly to make parents have a better life.
I just wanted to add one thing on that. So, working from the brand side, we have influencers that come to us, but then we also go out to influencers as well. So if there's someone that you see that you want to work with, even if they have a lot of influencers, if they believe in your product and your organization, I don't think that there's probably anyone that's too small that could definitely reach out to somebody and see if they want to work together, and just figure out the terms that work for you. So that can be, whether you have 1,000 followers or somebody that's small, just find somebody that you want to work with and go to them too, and begin a relationship. And maybe it's not this year that you can work with them, maybe it's in a couple of years down the road when your brand gets bigger or something like that too. So reach out to everybody.
Ria, anything you want to add on getting started?
Sure, and I think, first and foremost, I think you have to understand what you want to accomplish. So for us, we work work with influencers in different scenarios. So we've worked with influencer programs when we wanted to test scale. We've also worked with smaller influencers like Nat, and we've even started to work with nano influencers who are, people who have maybe 200, 100 followers on Instagram. So it comes down to what you're looking to accomplish, I think, first and foremost.
That's great. So it sounds like really relationships and making sure that you're tying it back to your goals. So, you talk about number of followers. Talk to me about how do you know that that's real? I mean, how do you know that they haven't just paid for followers? I mean, we hear a lot about authenticity. And sure, maybe some of the big ones, really big ones, you can maybe consider as legit, but what do you guys do to vet people that you want to work with?
I can say for us, we really shy away from the people who have tens and thousands of followers, just because there is really no way to validate their follower account. And really for us, it's about real engagement with their followers. And so, that's why we've had a really long time partnership with Nat and other partners. And really, and some of the people that have, become really good partners for us are people who have just posted organically on our Facebook page saying, I really love your product, and they have a personal story that they share with us, and they're consistent about it, and you can tell they're just not trying to get free stuff. And so we reach out to them saying, hey, thank you so much for posting on our behalf. We'd love to send you some stuff. Would you are you open to working with us, trying out some products, that kind of thing. So it's really about getting people to be brand advocates on your behalf, and just sharing that enthusiasm again within their group of friends, whether it's on social, then also through old-fashioned word of mouth.
Yeah, we work with a lot of influencers that have maybe used our products on their own and tag us, and then we DM them or just post on their pages, do you want to work with us? Do you want to work on this product? DM us, let's build a relationship. And then also going into a little bit about who you want to work with and vetting folks. Fortunately, I'm sure you've all heard, there are influencers out there that purchase followers. So we think that any influencer has purchased their followers, we run the other way. And there's a few ways, it's hard to tell because I think for lots of reasons, but there's a few free tools out there that you can check to see influencers' engagement rate. You can put in to see sort of their follower growth over time. So we look for any weird patterns. So if somebody overnight all of a sudden has 10,000 followers when they started with 100, and they didn't have a big promotion or anything going on, that could be a red flag. So we look for those kinds of things. We look through, again, this is when it comes down to manually looking at the followers, reading their comments. If you see a lot of generic comments, hey girl, love your shot, you can tell patterns over time. Lots of emojis, responses in different languages. That's a big red flag that influencer is probably just, buying their followers. So we definitely run another way when we see that.
So speaking of tools, any specific tools you guys use beyond obviously building relationships that can help you get started or help you vet a little bit that you would want to mention?
One free tool we use is called Social Blade. That's pretty good. It gives you those timelines and a history of someone's followers over time. But we really do a lot more manual than we use tools. I don't know if you guys have any, but
I would echo that. I think it's because we're just so fiercely protective of the brand that regardless of the technology, I think just having someone from our team, not even outsourcing to an agency, we want to, be able to see first, with our own eyes that this person is legit.
So let's talk about what's worked well for you. So Kara, I'll start with you, but tell us a little bit about a successful campaign, why it was successful, what worked.
So one of the best things that we do for one of our clients is we've had a year-long campaign with influencers, and we've been doing this for them for, I think we're going on year 6 with them. And we divide it into paid and unpaid influencers, which is really important too, because there's a lot of micro influencers out there. They're really excited about working with brands, they might love your product, and they're not looking for payment. And certainly some of the bigger folks do want payment, so we work with both because we want to make sure that we reach a wide audience, and we see value in both. So for this particular brand, we have actual contracts for the paid folks, which sounds like a lot of work, but it actually takes out a lot of the guesswork. And it makes sure that you're all on the same page. Another thing that can be important with us when we're working with these type of year-long influencers is exclusivity. So this particular type of relationship with paid influencers that are almost serving as mini spokespeople, you know, we don't want them to talk about how much they love our product, it's the best, and then tomorrow they say our competitor is the best. So we don't think that feels right. So we ask for year-long contracts. And throughout that, we also, each contract is unique to that influencer. So some folks are really strong in YouTube videos, so we'll put more YouTube videos in their contract. Other folks, you know, their Instagram following is really strong, and that's where their niche is. So that's in their contract. Each contract is unique. We pay, you know, we negotiate and pay them differently based on what works for them. So those are all really important things to us. And then on the unpaid side, it's a little bit more, I would say, one-off, but we still use that as an opportunity to build relationships, to educate them about our products, and again, make sure that it's really collaborative. And especially in the baby industry, you want to make sure that people are using your products correctly. You don't want people to be, you know, using your product, saying that they got it from your brand, and then you see misuse or unsafe use. So you want to be protective of that, and that's really important to us too. And if they don't use the product properly, then you can't use the content on your own. So, you know, if they have good content, you can use that in your own marketing materials if you agree to that and all of that as well. So.
I also want to say, if you're going to partner with somebody, make sure that you get permission to reuse their stuff. So sometimes, you know, I'll do a partnership and then I'll see an article that we wrote on their page, and if it's literally cut and paste, Google's not a fan of that. So it actually hurts everybody involved. So we typically actually only work on an annual contract. So I don't like doing one-off promotions. I don't think that it actually brings the value to any brand, because if we do something that one day at that one time, you're only giving me one opportunity to expose your brand to that, you know, that particular company. So I'm very, very neurotic about that. So if any of you, I apologize if often we say we're doing this, we have this one hero product, we want to do this one promotion, I will happily say no thank you, because especially us within the twin world, we're a very interesting market, and I really know my market. I really know what they're reading, I know when they're reading, and I'm constantly, every night before I go to bed, I look at my analytics, I see what time they were on, I see what they were reading, and then my team, and we do have a team, I'm not just one person posting stuff on Instagram because I can't. But what we find typically works is, with our twin families, we like to do an annual proposal, and we do have a lot of reach. Instagram families are not Facebook families. Facebook families are not Snapchat families. Snapchat families are not podcast families. So we have all of that, and just like Michaela was saying, we want to reach the moms where they are. So we are very conscious about making sure we have a balanced representation on all of the platforms. So for us, when we create a proposal, we say, okay, this is what we think is best. We noticed that in May and September, those are our 2 big months for expecting families. We've noticed this trend because I started Twiniversity in 2009. So I've been able to actively see when people are coming in. So I say, okay, you're a stroller is gonna be here. People are typically looking, if they're delivering in October, people are typically, looking then. When you work with an influencer, they should know that stuff. They should know their audience. And yes, maybe they are putting their money away for college. And don't get me wrong, I'm putting money away for my kids' college. Like, I'm not doing this. I'm doing this out of the kindness of my heart first, but I am a business person, and I am very conscious to make sure that you guys see your return. So for the people that I work with, even when I have meetings, I've been working with MAM forever. They were one of my first partners, which was fantastic, and it's because my children use MAM. So whenever I speak about those pacifiers, it doesn't only come from like, I'm a marketer, here's why I'm an influencer. It's really like, I remember buying a MAM pacifier on eBay for $46 because they didn't make that pattern anymore, and it was the only one my baby A liked. Like, that's crazy to spend $46 on one freaking pacifier. It's nuts, but that's how much of a role they played. And so to me, as an influencer, I'm more of also a storyteller. And that's an important thing when you work with influencers, because that's, like, if I would say I'm an educator and I'm a storyteller, because when I go and say, listen, they saved me from, as twins, twin parents do use pacifiers more than the average bear, because we literally have to pacify a child while attending to another one. So Ria, despite the fact that she wasn't with the company at that time, didn't even have babies of her own, but they played a very instrumental role in my life. And so when you portray that to your audience, and they see that you're super humble about it, and you're like, not only is it great, everybody knows it's great, blah, 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 but here's why it's great. So when you work with influencers, if you find that they have a personal connection to your product, take advantage of that. And well, Ria never says, tell that story, Nat. Tell it. You know you love to tell that story. But
It's a good one.
it is a good one. It's like, it's a true story. So it was a purple pacifier. We could go on for days. I have it burned into my memory of what it looks like. I picked it off of the floor 13 times a night. One night, I counted. So, because we can't use bumpers, right? So we had to keep going Billy Crowley and G.I. Joe style to get the pacifier. So if you find somebody, or even if you look for your product on their pages, and like Ria was saying, you have like the tiny micro-influencers, even if they only have 200 people, if they have a great story, take this story, say, hey, listen, could we do an Instagram video? We could add you into the story. You run it on your page. Do you know how great that mom feels that she was able, like she loved something, and she's able to tell the world her point of view about it? Like, you guys don't have to spend $1 bazillion. You gotta start slow. And we started at what, maybe I had 2,000 followers when we started? And now, literally, well, you don't know. Yes, I have 2,000 followers right now, I'll tell you. But we grew as a team. And my thing is, I never want to find a new partner. So if you find influencers that are working for you, I'm so happy with my little family that we have, but we continue to grow, and we actually don't do exclusivity because I feel that that's a negative to my group. Because what if they can't afford that? Or what if they can't find that? So it's not that I don't want to be exclusive to somebody, but I don't want my people to feel like this is it. This is like, there's not a one size fits all in this industry, and you guys know that, because if that was the case, there would only be one pacifier, one bottle, one stroller. That's the way that it would go. But there's not, and so we just have to speak to everybody that's there. So that's my 2 cents, what it's worth.
It's great. Ria, anything from the MAM side that is a huge success for you guys? And then how do you measure that? I think that's the other question is then what does success really look like? So you talked about what are your initial goals, and how do you know that a partnership with an influencer meets those goals?
Right. I mean, we look at hard metrics, such as engagement, shares, things like that, because it's important to look at that, and especially in this data-driven climate. We have to, because we need to justify our marketing investments. But again, this is why we choose not to partner with every single Jill on the block. It's because we really do take a lot of care in making sure the partners that we work with are giving us the bang for our buck. And again, I know not to sound like a broken record, but it's really about taking the care to make sure that every person that promotes your product on your behalf is the right person for it. Yeah.
Kara, what about you guys in terms of measurement?
Yeah, so we look at the numbers as well, but also qualitatively is looking at data too. So was this person easy to work with? Were their messages clear? Again, they don't have to be regurgitating the brand messages, but was it clear to the consumer? Did they provide things like links so that the consumer could find where to buy the product? Did they use the brand name correctly? Did they talk about the product correctly? So we look at all qualitative and quantitative measurement as well. So that's really important for us. And oftentimes it's not just who had the most likes, but what did that engagement look like? Was the influencer getting things like DMs to ask questions? Were there back and forth exchanges and things? So you have to kind of look beyond the numbers.
That's great. Can I add something to that?
Of course.
So the way that we look at it is are people putting this on their registry? So, you know, unfortunately, Amazon doesn't give us a cookie that lasts forever, so I can't see if purchases are made. So affiliate stuff typically doesn't work for us because my audience is typically expectant. But what sometimes people do, and we teach in-person Twiniversity classes as well as online. And so when we're online, I always say to our students, and in class too, my girls do, we're like, if you're curious to know if your registry is okay, send us a link and we'll look at it. And so we really do mean it. Like, we'll look and make sure that you have all the things that we think you should have. But then if I see products that we recommended, I know it was a success. So to us, I want to know, was that messaging clear to them that I thought this was a good choice, right? And now that's not a hard sell, but ultimately, I know Ria loves me from the bottom of her heart, and Alan too, but if they weren't seeing, you know, sales from us, I know they like me, but they could buy me drinks, and I'd still go to drinks for them, but I don't know if they would continue a partnership with Twiniversity. So that is very important, and you could ask people to send you screenshots, and that's another thing for influencers. Guys, you should be asking for Google Analytics screenshots, literal screenshots. Don't send me your analytics. That's great, that's really nice, but send me a screenshot. I don't want to report, and and in my circle of other influencers, I know they're buying followers. They talk about it. I'm like, are you serious? So this morning we played a game called Who Do We Think Has Fake Followers? Literally, the three of us lying in bed in our pajamas this morning. And Meg can testify because we were sending her screenshots. But I look because it's important for me to know as an influencer, because I do a lot of collaborations. And I don't want to collaborate with somebody who's buying followers. Who does that, right? My voice is super authentic. I don't want them riding my back to the authenticity trail. You know, so it's really important. And so that's another tip. If you find an influencer you like, see who they work with. And if they're working with other people, that influencer already vetted that company for you, right? Or that mom for you. So if you are the company you keep. So that's a pretty important one. And it's if you find that it's working for this person, if you have a partnership with an influencer and it's doing good, see who plays in their sandbox. And then you could go from there. So that's something that's a great tip.
So we do have a couple of minutes left for questions. We'll open it up to the room. We only have 4 microphones, so if you want to ask a question, please raise your hand and then shout it out loud. Yep, go ahead.
How do you check if they're buying followers? What is like the sub-tricks to understand if they're paying?
So your question is, how can you tell if someone is buying followers? What are some tricks to know that?
So I mentioned a few. I'll kind of start there. So if you use like a tool like Social Blade, it'll show you kind of how followers have grown. So if somebody has a huge dip, a huge increase rather, that's kind of a good sign that that's when the purchase happened. Engagement rate, anything less than 1% or over 12%, we think is kind of a flag either way. And then you have to manually look too. You have to look at, are there bots that are responding to their comments? Look at their follower list too. You see folks without an Instagram profile picture or someone from, lots of people from a country that this influencer doesn't speak the language. That might be a good red flag. So you have to do a mix of manual work, and you can try to use some tools, but you have to do both.
The manual is so fun. Do it. Honestly, like literally, like you're getting your hair done. Just play. Who follows
You
this
go
person?
down a deep rabbit hole.
Oh, I love it. It's one of my favorite things to play. Oh, who is this person? Oh, he's looking for a hot date? Or, yeah, I just click, especially the ones that have like a fun picture or it's like a super hot guy. And I know like it's like his abs. And so like I'll click that and I'll be like, why is he following a mom? Like this exclusive breastfeeding group. You know? Like that guy with those abs, he got them because he burned so many calories from breastfeeding.
Other questions? Right here in the front.
I'm John from Tiny Human Supply Company. We're a new brand, and I had a question for Nat actually. Like, as an influencer, how do you see industry trends in terms of like how influencers are getting paid? Is there a range? Is it flat rate? Is it affiliate programs? I mean, what do you see right now, and where do you see it going?
Well, I know that different influencers do different things. So some people are very heavy in affiliate and they love it. So if you're like working with toddlers and up, sometimes that works. If you're trying to get the expectant parent, it doesn't always work. I do know that the way that we structure our rates are based on the rate of return that you will see. So everybody in this room who works with me will have a different rate, because I can't, like if you only have, a product that's $2 versus a product that's $4,500, there's no way that I would charge the same thing. Because the weight, like I said, and that's what you should speak to the people and say, you know what, our product is, $25. So when we give you a proposal, we say this is the percentage of parents that you would need to sell to in order for that to be successful. So that's one thing. There are minimums that people have that are like, okay, it could be anywhere from $250 for an Instagram picture to literally $25,000. And the thing is, it also depends on how specific of a product, how specific of a market, how many do they think you're gonna sell. So it unfortunately, just like not having exclusivity, this isn't a one size fits all. And so when we go and we start, and if we're gonna try to partner with people, it's really based on, we go home and we actually run the numbers as a team and we say, okay, this is their product. What do we think a twin mom is realistically gonna buy? Not let's shoot for the stars and she's a Rockefeller and she's gonna buy everything. Like, let's be realistic. And let's go middle America, non-coastal family, what do we think she's gonna buy? Because we have a big coastal audience. So we know that if we could just fulfill that little percentage, that you guys are gonna be good, and then next year you're gonna say, what more can we do? So, and we have like an introductory small business proposal that we created for brands just like you guys. And it's like, we wanna give you the same opportunities that the big brands have, but we don't want you to spend $1 million, because I want this to happen. I want to have a conversation 9 years later when, Ria is buying the giraffes for my kids as a thank you present for graduation. So that is, when, like I said, it's never about me. And so when you're working with influencers, you really have to think, are they working for their own family, or are they working for the betterment of the parenting community in general?
I think that is all we have time for. So I want to say a huge thank you, Michaela, Scary Mommy, Ria, Natalie, Kara, and huge thank you to Rich for sponsoring this wonderful luncheon today. We'll be back here for many other sessions throughout the day, and look for anyone in a purple shirt if you have questions from JPMA. Otherwise, have a great day. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.